what differentiates between, like, can you tell early if somebody's going to win or not? Does that make sense?
For the most part, I can,
Okay.
because a lot of it deals with, what's their motivation?
Mm-hmm.
Are they the primary breadwinner in the house or not?
Yeah.
Do they have kids or not? How long have they had their last job?
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And how many people do they know?
Okay.
And that's really a lot of it. And are they willing to get out there and work? 'Cause it's,
Welcome to Agent Success Podcast. If you're a real estate agent looking to succeed in today's crazy market, well, you're in the right place. Each week, we talk with successful real estate agents willing to share their expert insights, trade secrets, and mindset that help them to succeed. There's no fluff, just straight to the point content that prioritizes one thing above all, your success. So without further ado, let's cut to the chase. Welcome to another episode of Cut to the Chase, where we talk about all things real estate success. How do you achieve success in real estate? And we interview and talk to the most successful agents in our town here in Colorado Springs. Today, I have a very special guest with me. I have Darrell Wass at RE Advantage. How are you doing, Darrell?
Doing fantastic. Thank you.
Great. Now, Darrell, you started in 1999. That's for most people, that's a good amount of years, right?
I tell everybody I started last millennium.
Yeah.
Then they know.
I started in the last century. Yeah. I barely missed that. I missed it, but you got me by a couple years. Had I started a couple years early, I would love that line. I wish I could take that. Yeah. Last century. I like that.
No, millennium.
Last millennium. Even better.
Mm-hmm.
And just a couple quick things. Is you currently manage 7 different people on your team. You were 2000 Rookie of the Year, which would have been obviously your rookie season. You've 2017 Realtor of the Year. You've had 3 terms as MLS president. You've been the board president. I'm getting exhausted just thinking of all the volunteer hours that have taken. How do you have time to do real estate? Holy cow, that's a lot.
I work better when I'm busy. If I don't have stuff to do, I don't get crap done.
Yeah. Okay.
So I work a lot better if I'm
So
busy.
there's an interesting quote that I like to kind of claim as my own, but it's not. I learned it many years ago, and a guy said that a problem or task will expand to the size of the time allotted to it.
I like that.
So you're busy. You're like,
Yeah.
I have 13 minutes to make this decision. I have, an hour and a half to complete this, as opposed to think about this for a while, because then that can grow into days, into weeks. So how much time are you willing to allot that? And that's the size it'll grow into. Now, Darrell, a couple things. We're going to go through, I'm going to ask a couple specific questions that are going to help other real estate agents succeed. And I'd like to know a little bit more about you and kind of what's behind what you do, why you do it, kind of success. So we're going to kind of just pack a lot in. You cool with that?
Sounds great.
Okay, cool. Let's do it. First thing is you became a real estate agent in 1999. What did you do before that? Like what was life like before becoming a real estate agent?
So I was actually a store manager for Woodley's Fine Furniture.
Oh, over off of is it Academy?
Yep.
Yeah, by Palmer Park.
So I started working for them when I was in high school.
Oh, wow.
And then in their factory in Longmont, building the furniture.
Oh, wow.
And then went into sales and then sales management at the age of 19.
Holy cow.
So I've been hiring and firing since I was 19 years old.
You're not new to it. So,
No.
And the funny thing about, furniture sales is, to me, you have to learn how to be a salesperson, because people don't just generally walk in and be like, oh yeah, do you have any $2,000 hutches I can look at? It's a process, and it's a lot of follow-up. Do you think that contributed to, does that help you in real estate, or did that help you in the early days of real estate?
Oh, absolutely. Because you had to really, the thing I didn't like about the furniture business is if somebody didn't like what you had in the store, you were out of luck. But with real estate,
Yeah.
you don't like this house, we'll go look at another house.
Yeah. You don't like a
that
split
house?
level? I got a rancher.
Yeah, we'll go look at new builds. You don't
Yeah.
like new builds, we'll find a lot and build you one.
Yeah.
So I like the fact that I could sell anything and everything, but definitely had to hone in your sales skills working in a retail environment.
So did you guys, in that environment, was it obviously commission-based, I would assume?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so being commission-based, you're 19 years old. Did you have a manager that taught you how to sell, or did they just give you a clipboard and say, go get them?
pretty much a clipboard and go get them. So a lot of my stuff that I did was my own training and reading books and whatnot on sales. Like did a lot of Tom Hopkins stuff back in the day.
And this is back when you were like 19, 20 years old?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So I kind of got fascinated with, I decided at one point I was going to be the world's best salesperson, right? This is like, I was probably like 22 or 23, which is weird because like before that, I didn't necessarily I didn't know I wanted that, right? But it is a self-identification where you're like, hold on a second. Like I'm actually enjoying it. I enjoy helping people. I'm not horrible at it, but there's a real skill set here. And it's not just a matter of convincing people. It's a matter of understanding where you're at in the process. It's a matter of understanding why my follow-up is so important, what I need to say on the follow-up, how do I add value. So it's interesting that you did that at an early age. A lot of people, I always find it interesting when somebody finds some sort of passion or direction at that early age. It can be difficult because usually, I mean, figure you're 20 years old. What do you want to do? Most kids are going to college, asking mom and dad for some money for Taco Bell, and going on dates. And you're out working for commission.
Yeah.
Hustling.
Yeah. Well, I realized when I was in the factory, when the hot summers and there's the stain and the wood dust and everything, it's like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. So what can I do next? So they opened up their first retail store, and I talked myself into a job there. And then
it's like, look, I know I'm covered in stain and sawdust right now, but I really think I could sell this stuff.
Exactly.
Well, and I guess who else are you going to ask to sell it than somebody who actually knows, like, hey, look, let me tell you about this. I actually know how this works because I cut the wood on this. I know how this works, right?
Exactly.
Oh, that's fantastic. So jumping forward, you get into real estate in 1999. And what I've realized in business and in real estate is there's an evolution that most successful people go through. What I mean is when you very first start, you have these grandiose ideas and plans, right? And that generally changes. Not that it has to, it still can't be grand and amazing, but it has changed. So how have your goals changed from when you very first started the first few years in real estate to the goals that you have now that you're seasoned? And see, you've built a career in real estate. And I always tell people you have a job or you have a career in real estate. Yeah. A job is you don't go to work for 8 hours and then you worry and you wonder why it doesn't work after 3 or 4 years. And you have a career, you've been doing it for 25 years and it's working, right? So what goals have been different from when you first came into where you're at now?
Well, when I first came in, I left a good job. So my first thing was failure's not an option.
All right.
And so,
were you married at the time or were you single?
Yeah, I was married at the time.
Did you have any children?
A couple stepkids.
Okay, so you had a family you had to provide for.
Yes.
Okay. So going into real estate, I'm married. Hey, honey, I'm making XYZ amount of money over at the other job. I'm thinking I'm going to go quit and get into this.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So first couple of years, I mean, it was realizing that I was going to open a business.
Mm-hmm.
It was going to have to be nose to the grindstone for a couple of years until my phone started to ring. I did a lot of door knocking, a lot of, just whatever I could to build my business.
Yeah.
And so the goals really changed from, just getting a pattern, building the business to starting a team and going with the team concept and trying to replicate myself, and then really just, investments and, and helping people. And if you take good care of people, then they'll come back and they'll refer their friends. So, I mean, by the time I was hit 2003, pretty much all my business was repeat and referral, which was my goal from the beginning.
So that was a very short period of time. How many hours does it? So it actually leads into the next question that I have is, we see the success, we see the success of Darrell and all of the achievements, but there's a lot of struggle that goes behind success. Kobe didn't become excellent at basketball because he just decided to, right? A lot of practice, a lot of dribbling, a lot of shooting, a lot of failures. What was some of the hardest parts of that? Like, where did you hit difficulties at any point?
Well, the first one was 9/11.
Oh, so you were in for 2 years at that point.
Yeah, so just about 2 years, 9/11 hit.
Everything's shut down.
Yeah, so I worked my way up the price scale.
Yeah.
Started low because when you first start, all you're doing is low-end buyers. And
Yeah.
then you slowly work your way up. Finally worked my way up into some more luxury properties.
Yeah.
9/11 hits, everything stops, and then the upper-end market stopped even longer.
Oh yeah.
So I read the book Who Moved My Cheese?
Yep.
And went and found where the cheese was, which was back down in the stuff where people are selling and buying in the military, sellers and buyers. So went right back there.
You went to where it was. Mm-hmm. You didn't look at it and say, why isn't it here?
Yeah. And I never wanted to be the agent that said, oh yeah, we didn't think you did homes in that price range.
Right.
Where people think,
and I know some agents do that, right? They're like, well, no, I'll refer you to, I don't list anything under 400,000. I'll refer you to somebody. Mm-hmm. And you're saying you wanted to be the agent. It was like, I'm your guy. Call me.
Yeah. Yeah. Because a lot of people, you do the parents' house, then the kids want to buy something.
Yeah.
So if you think if you come across as too snooty and, they don't want to work, you don't want to work with their kids.
Like, well, Darrell helped us buy our $1 million house. Why don't you go call whoever's on floor time at RE/MAX, and that'll be your agent, right? Because Darrell's up here. And that's interesting because a lot of agents, it's been my experience anyway, that a lot of agents will, they'll build something up in their mind of how they're supposed to act and how they're supposed to be, right? You laugh because of, but in reality, you're a dude named Darrell that kicks butt at real estate, right? At the end of the day, you're making human connections. It's not, oh shoot, I better act a certain way, or I have to put the word luxury in my title, that way I can have a word that justifies me, as opposed to my actions and my connections that are justifying me. So in the challenges that you've had, so you went through 9/11 hit, and I know markets completely shut down, right? Like I was married at the time, and I had quit a job to get into real estate. So very similar, just a couple years later. And I decided, okay, things are really tight. I'm going to cash out my 401k from the previous successful job I had. That was fascinatingly poor timing. Like it was amazing because I started the process right before 9/11. And so it takes a while, right, to cash it. So I'm like a week or two. So I started, and the markets just shut down, right? And I'm like, huh. Then they open back up, and you get whatever the market value that day is. And so the market, I was like, son of a gun, I needed that money. That's the only reason I cashed that out, right? A very, very difficult time. What about during the 20, say, 8, 9, 10 range with the recession? Did you struggle in that time frame, or how did you adjust your business?
Those were some of my best years.
Interesting.
It was June of 2007, and everything ground to a halt.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, here's our reality and all the foreclosures that we had and whatnot.
Yep.
So I got my CDPE, Certified Distressed Property Expert certification, learned short sales, jumped into that arena because even a lot of my own clients had gotten into trouble. They'd lost their jobs, medical issues. So it's like, okay, well, here's... Again,
and they're at a 6, 7, 8% interest rate, and their loan just went adjustable, right?
Loan went adjustable, or for a lot of them, they were just flat out upside down.
Yeah.
Because people, I mean, you've seen it. They refinance their house like it's a credit card.
Yeah.
And just spend
like,
it.
Hey, I built up $20K. Let's go ahead and get that. Kind of like me with my 401k back in early 2000, right?
Exactly.
Not the best idea. I should have just let that thing sit. Yeah.
Yeah. Of course, it was my problem that they didn't have any equity in their house.
Yeah. But, so now you're dealing with REOs, short sale, foreclosure. Mm-hmm. So it's interesting because at that point in time, I was doing mortgages at the time. And what I noticed was even when you had a qualified buyer, and there's plenty of houses for sale. There was houses everywhere. Yeah. But the weird thing to me was the banks. Now we were dealing with Countrywide at the time. So, we didn't realize that it was super shady at the time. At the time it was like, oh, it's the biggest lender in the country. It's all good. Right. So we're dealing with them, and all of a sudden they're not buying the notes anymore. And then they're not approving things they should be approving. And then later you find out they're upside down and they don't really have the money. And but at the time you're like, well, hold on a second, I got a really and their underwriting got super stingy, and you're just like, holy cow, there's tons of houses. I finally have a buyer. I've been struggling to find a buyer, right? See, in real estate you can go sell. Mortgages, I can't go sell. I deal with buyers, right? So. And nobody's refinancing in that situation. So I'm dealing with buyers. I got one, and then it's not going anywhere. And so when I started looking at who is winning and who is succeeding in the recession, the one area for real estate agents that I realized was consistent, people who really crushed it, hit short sales, foreclosed homes, stuff like that. Like that REO world, that became their new, like you said, who moved my cheese, right? Like
Yeah.
I went from luxury to first time buyer. All of a sudden, I'm your REO guy. I know all about it.
Yeah, you just had to educate yourself and
Yeah.
go with what was selling and what was doing. But I mean, there's plenty of business. That's the nice thing about our town being so transient. There's plenty of people always moving in and out.
Yeah.
It isn't like this big factory closed and everybody's moving out of town.
It's like, the Michelin factory closed. Everyone's
yeah,
vacating over to Columbus or something.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's plenty of business in this town.
Yeah. That's an interesting thought, because I mirror that. I believe that there's a ton of business. But I don't hear that from a lot of agents. I hear, oh man, Tim, with the rates the way they are, how's the guy supposed to get anything done? I'm like, well, dude, I don't know, but here's what I do know. There was like 2,500 sides last month, right? That's a lot of business, right?
Yep.
So, I mean, some people got a lot more of it, but that's a lot of business. And what kind of in mortgages, what I say is, if I don't have business right now, then somebody outworked me, out-hustled me, out-thought me 90 days ago, 120 days ago, something like that in mortgages, right? So you look at that and you're like, that guy, how? What? He worked harder than me? What? Then you grab the mirror and you look at it and you're like, hello, cause of all my problems. Let's get down to business and start working, right? So that leads me to a question here that how many people do you think you've managed over the course of this last 20, 25 years?
Few hundred.
Few hundred. You've seen every flavor then.
Oh yeah, because I
excuse.
get to see that many agents' problems. So
And reasons.
and and whatnot. Yeah.
What would you say the difference between, let's say you have it doesn't matter if it's a new or a struggling agent. Somebody needs to be coached, right? Because if they're already crushing it, then they're not calling Darrell. They're focused on crushing it. So they're underneath you. They're working. They're not having as much success as they want, or they're a new agent. What differentiates between, like, can you tell early if somebody's going to win or not? Does that make sense?
For the most part, I can, because a lot of it deals with, what's their motivation?
Mm-hmm.
Are they the primary breadwinner in the house or not?
Yeah.
Do they have kids or not? How long have they had their last job?
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
And how many people do they know?
Okay.
And that's really a lot of it. And are they willing to get out there and work? Because it's, my very first interview was with Gary Barris at Remax Properties in 1999, and he had a list of questions for me.
Yeah.
And he said, okay, so what are you going to be selling? And I'm like, myself. He goes, okay, puts his notebook down. Once somebody realized, like, you're not selling real estate.
Interesting.
You're selling yourself. That's the only commodity. We don't have a storefront.
Yeah.
We don't hold inventory. The only thing you're selling is yourself.
The only inventory is is that person, right? Their house that they're selling.
Yeah.
That inventory is available to whoever they're going to sign with. That's interesting. Yeah.
So the only thing you're selling is yourself. But in terms of seeing who's going to do well, it's like, who's willing to really grind it for the first couple of years? Because I tell people, you're going to door knock, you're going to do open houses, you're going to do mailers, you're going to do pop buys, you're going to do social media, you're going to do whatever you need to do those first couple of years. Because even your friends and relatives won't necessarily use you the first couple of years.
They don't want to.
Because they don't think you have enough
Hey,
experience.
Tim, I sure like you, but Darrell's been doing this 25 years. Maybe you could just mirror him during the transaction or something.
Yeah, yeah. And I've cold-listed stuff with people. But really, if they realize, A, they want it to be a career instead of a job.
Yeah, yeah.
And two, if they realize that they're actually starting a business, and you can't expect a business to be profitable right out of the gate. I mean, I went 6 months before I had my first closing.
Was your wife freaking out?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank goodness for credit cards.
Yeah. And once that first closing happened, was it like a one-hit wonder until for another 6 months, or did it start to happen after that?
It's like taking the lid off the basketball hoop. When you're shooting bricks for a while.
Yeah.
No, I ended up with 22 transactions from April till the end of the year, and that's why I was Rookie of the Year that year.
Wow.
So pretty much just launched from there, and just kept going, because it's a pipeline. You just got to keep going. It's it's like everybody I talked to wasn't ready for 3 to 6 months. Yeah. But then you keep talking to the people that aren't ready for 3 to 6 months, and then they all string.
So how does that work then for a new agent coming in? You build this pipeline. How many hours a day did you work then versus now? Has it been the same? Like, how much time are you putting in?
I always told people, if you're willing to work even 2 to 3 hours a day prospecting,
Okay.
if you spend 2 to 3 hours a day on money making activities,
Okay.
then the rest of it's going to happen for itself. Because you don't have to work 60 hours.
Right. So 2 to 3 hours. Now, I find it interesting that you said 2 to 3 hours of prospecting. You didn't say 2 to 3 hours of showing houses. You didn't say 2 to 3 hours of writing contracts, 2 to 3 hours of researching MLS, 2 to 3 hours per day of prospecting.
Yes.
And that's interesting because and I talk to a lot of other salespeople and real estate agents, and some people say, I'm not a salesperson. Well, in my mind, you're absolutely 100% a salesperson. But the one thing that is getting the deal. That's the one thing, right? Like everything else is an arm of it. So if you get a buyer, now all of a sudden you have a contract to write. Now all of a sudden you have a house to go see, right? Like all these other activities stem from getting that one person. So what activity do you tell a new real estate agent? What activity, like if I was going to design your 2 or 3 hours a day of prospecting, how would I make that look?
I would give them a list because, there's so many different things you can do in this business. Here's 15 different ways you can prospect. Pick the 3 you're actually going to do.
Okay, yeah.
It's like, hey, are you going to go see your friends and have coffee with them? Nope. Okay, then are you going to call them? Are you going to email them? What different things are you going to do, in terms of that activity? And, for me, a huge part of my success was I had a really good team when I started.
You were on a team?
No.
Oh, you built a team?
So, no, it was my lender, so
Okay.
a good lender like you.
Yeah.
A good title person, and a good home inspector.
Oh, so that kind of team.
Yeah,
Okay.
so that way, because there were so many other new agents at the time I joined, and they're just micromanaging the whole thing, and nobody that they were working with was any good. It's like, I'm going to work with good people so I can hand that off to them, let them do their part of the transaction.
So you freed yourself up.
Oh, yeah, because that gave me time to not be so, because everybody rides a roller coaster. Oh, I have a deal.
Yeah.
And then, oh, wait, the deal's done. Now I don't have any business. Like, oh, okay, and the roller coaster sucks in real estate. It just does.
Yeah.
So, to smooth that out.
So with a team, I see a lot of, and I don't know if you could speak to this, but I see a lot of new agents that when they come in, they want to be the expert in everything real estate, right? And I don't mean selling and buying a house. I mean title, homeowners insurance, inspection, appraisal, lending. Like all of a sudden you come to me for everything, right? Oh wait, that appraiser said what? Don't worry, I'm going to give them a call. And they just they want to be like the person. Yeah. How does that? It doesn't sound like you do that.
I used to in the beginning. I used to try to keep track of rates and loans and this and that. And it was like, this is brain damage. Kudos to what you do, because I could not do it.
Well, I don't have to do what you do, so I only got one thing I got to do.
Yeah, but I would just say, hey, here's somebody you can talk to about that stuff. Because trying to stay up with the minutia of all aspects of the industry. It's like work on the stuff that you're going to do. It's like, hey, get to know the new builds. Go visit all the new build models. And get to know all that inventory. Because if you got time, go meet those people. Yeah. Because then when you have a buyer that maybe comes in unannounced. You're going to still be a part of that deal because they already know you.
You're the second person in probably the last 2 weeks that have mentioned to me, second person that I respect, I should say. I talk to a lot of real estate agents, but there's certain real estate agents that I see success and I see the hard work. It's not a flash in the pan, right? So you're the second one I've spoke to in the last 2 weeks that had mentioned the activities for a new agent, right? Like just the pure activities. You spend several hours a day doing your activities, and it was also mentioned, hey, go visit learn every new build, learn every area, go preview houses, learn who the sales staff is at the new builds, learn, sit open houses, do everything you can. Like every day, are you busy doing? Are you learning? Are you prospecting? So you say do the 2 or 3 things that you would do. What does your team right now, because you have a team now, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay. So does that team that you have now, do they do a lot of that for you, or is it a team? Because I see a lot of different team structures. Do they kind of run their own, show their own way, and they get leads from you, or is you guys a collective team? You have a listing agent, a buying agent, a TC. Like how is your team structured?
So I'm the team lead. We've got 5 other licensed selling agents.
Okay.
And then our TC is actually also licensed as well.
Okay.
So if we're in a pinch and we need
She
a
could jump
contract
in.
written
Yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever, she can
Okay.
legally do that because
Yeah.
we know all the assistants that write all kinds of contracts that never get reviewed by their brokers.
If we see them come over and as gently as possible, we say, oh, you can't add personal property. You might want to talk to your managing broker. Yeah.
Yeah. But so it's myself. So each agent on my team has their own sphere. So,
Okay.
a lot of team leaders kind of grab everybody else's sphere and holds them hostage.
Yeah. Yep.
So for me, it's like I want everybody to have their own success. And so they work their own spheres. And then we've got the team leads that come in as far as that goes. And then I've got a Google phone line set up.
Okay.
So when a lead comes in, it rings to 5 people.
Okay.
So somebody's going to be able to pick up that phone and run with it. And then so we have our, they have the splits on the stuff that they do themselves from their own sphere, the splits they have with the team, so
Oh,
between
okay.
the two of
So
them.
they can win in 2 different ways there.
Oh,
Now,
absolutely.
do you worry, because I see this a lot in real estate agents, do you personally worry by letting them have their own sphere, right? Because that's what we do in our company at 719 Lending. Everybody, they build their own business, but we have kind of a collective way of making sure things are done right to where you don't have a big negative impact on me. It's only positive impacts with each other, right? Do you worry ever about, like as you're letting people get your leads and everything, do you worry about them up and leaving you and going and starting their own thing? It's not a concern to you.
No,
Why
because
not?
if they do, if somebody's not a good fit, if I'm not a good fit for them or they're not a good fit for me,
Yeah.
that's okay.
Okay.
I'm not going to make everybody happy. And really, I'm not going to grab their sphere and all of a sudden start selling them stuff any
Yeah.
more than they're going to take my sphere and do the same.
Okay.
So
As long as you're doing your sphere right, I suppose.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
Okay.
So
So with that, you coach your team. You coach them up. You train your team. You let them have their own sphere. It's a lot of freedom, a lot of possibilities, right? And maybe you don't want to get too personal on this, but do you have a lot of turnover, or do you see in that same structure a lot of turnover in? Because I see it all the time. I'm like, hey, we added Bob to our team. A month later, well, Bob decided that he wants to go work at ABC Company.
I don't. I think because
Yeah.
I don't have gold handcuffs on
Gotcha,
them,
yeah.
that they're actually more willing to stay.
Gotcha.
And if they buy into what we're doing and they're a good fit, then, I try to make it where it's attractive for them long term as well. It's
Yeah.
like, hey, I'm providing value to you. You're providing revenue to the team, but you're getting at least that much, if not more, in value back to them.
Well, and that's interesting because when somebody, I always say we have 3 clients at my office. We have the person buying the house, which is, that's obviously the client. But then I also have the real estate partner or whoever the referral partner is. They are my client. They have to have an equally good experience, and we have to add an equal amount of value to them to make them want to keep working with us. And then also my loan officer who works for me and doesn't have to work for me. They can go work wherever they want. That is also my client. So I have to deliver value and a good experience to all 3 levels within that. And it's interesting that you said basically the same thing. Like, am I adding enough value to this real estate agent?
I'd say you have a 4th client,
Which is?
listing broker.
Oh, yeah. There
'Cause
you
if
go.
you're not doing a good job for the listing broker,
Yeah.
then maybe next time
Yeah.
your lender letter shows up on an offer, maybe that's not the offer that gets accepted.
I'll tell you a little insider secret. Listing agents to me are about my favorite person on most transactions. They are always grateful. We always stay in contact with them. They're always grateful, and they're like, "Oh wow, that CTC happened kind of fast. Hey, look, money's going to be there. Don't worry about it." They're like, "Wow, I never get this kind." And I'm like, "Man, let everybody else keep doing a bad job. I'm just going to keep doing this."
Right.
Listing agents work out fantastic. So if you're a loan officer, don't listen to what I just said. Right? If you're a listing agent, you should expect that from your loan officer. I'm going to jump into a couple more things here really quickly. What is the number one mistake that new agents make?
Working too hard for the sale instead of the client.
Commission breath.
Oh, yeah. Once the dollar signs show up in somebody's eyes, it's over. You can kiss any repeat business goodbye. You can kiss referral business goodbye.
Interesting.
Some of my best referral sources are people that I told not to buy or sell.
Really?
I've never done a deal with them, and they send me business all day.
Touch on that for just a second. I've heard this from a couple successful agents as well over time is, a lot of people are like, well, everybody, when's the best time to buy a house? Right now. Go buy a house right now. And talking before we started, you had mentioned that that's not always the case. Sometimes it's not the right thing or the best thing for someone to buy a house. But at the end of the day, it's still their choice, right? So how do you gently handle that? How should an agent handle that?
Can you accomplish their goals? I mean, I ask a lot of questions before we start the process with a seller or a buyer. What are the goals? It's like, hey, I'm going to live here for a year and a half.
Yeah.
You're a buyer. Might not be a good time to buy.
Yeah.
It may not make sense to buy because back in a normal market, it took you a couple of years to be in the house to even break even if you were going to sell it.
Well, you got a VA buyer. You got a funding fee.
Yep.
You got your agent fees when you turn around to sell, and 50% of the time you're probably competing with a builder who may drop their price by $10,000, right?
Yeah.
So or raise it or buy whatever they're going to do, but it makes it to where it's and you're getting PCS'd in 18 months.
Yeah,
that's
so
it.
Talk those people out of things. I've had sellers I've talked out. They've tried to, maybe solve a problem by selling their house and maybe trying to pay some things off and go somewhere else. And it's like, you've got some equity here. You've got a really low house payment. You got a low interest rate. Yeah. Why don't you maybe do some consolidation of your debts and things like that and go about it a little bit differently?
Yeah,
and I tell them, it's like,
something.
hey, I'd love to sell you a house and make a commission, but I don't think that's the best thing for you. And then they look at you kind of cross-eyed, and it's like, it's not. It's like, I'm sorry, but in my opinion,
don't you want to help me? I'm trying to help you.
Exactly.
Don't you want a commission? I would love a commission. In fact, I'd like you to pay me a commission to tell you not to buy a house.
Exactly.
But I'm trying to tell you the best thing to do here. Couple more quick predefined questions here. If you could be a loan officer for a week, I'm going to restate that. If you had to be a loan officer for a week, what would you do differently than what you see the norm happening?
Boy. Well, a lot of it's out of the control. Be local, be good, be competitive, but really the communication, I think, is a big thing. A lot of lenders don't communicate. When I hear about a problem from the title person, and that happens all the time. It's a lender issue, but I don't hear from the buyer's agent, and I don't hear from the lender, and I hear it from the title person.
Yeah, Darrell, apparently we're not closing tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. I've gotten those phone calls.
What are you talking about? We're not closing tomorrow.
I've gotten those phone calls, yeah.
Where are you from originally?
I was born in Wisconsin, but I've been in Colorado since I was 14.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so lived in Longmont. My dad worked for IBM, so moved down here in '94.
So when you started real estate, you had a foundation already, or somewhat of a foundation. So you were here for
I was here for 5 years, but I was working 50 hours a week working retail, so I didn't have much of a life outside. So for me, I didn't have a big sphere. It was go out and meet people and do what I needed to do.
Now this question's kind of interesting, and I think this will help a lot of other real estate agents understand that you listen to self-help, or you take a Tom Ferry class or a Buffini class or whatever it is, and basically you see all the things that you're supposed to be doing. You're not doing them. You wish you did do them sometimes, or you wish you were at least consistent. You did it for longer than 10 days in a row. What one thing are you not doing right now that you think that you should be doing, or what are you maybe inconsistent on?
Well, the one thing for me is I have always been terrible about calling my clients.
Like
an
future
actual phone call.
Okay.
Phone call to my past clients and whatnot.
Gotcha. Yeah,
but
database.
I've always known that.
Yeah.
So I have a postcard that I send out that they get every month. With something of value in it. So I run into clients like, oh, you probably don't remember me. It's like, yeah, I just sent you the 2-for-1 for Elitch's.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, you did. It's like, I remember exactly who you are and what house,
I'm just terrible. I'm terrible at my follow-up calls.
So for me, it's
have you ever thought? And I actually fall into the same boat. And I think this is a problem with a lot of good salespeople is we're so good at parts of the sale, but we almost devalue might be the wrong word, but almost devalue that it's easier to get business from someone you already closed than to go out and hunt for new business, right? It's difficult to go hunt for new business, but it's almost you get in that mode, right? Have you ever thought about having somebody make the calls for you?
I'm not after a ton of new business because, I mean, really since '04, almost all my business has been repeat and referral every year, probably 85 to 90%.
Well, I guess, I mean, have you thought about having somebody call your past clients for you a couple times a year?
Yeah, no.
No? Okay.
No.
I've heard good and bad with that. I've had some people say absolutely not. I don't want some crazy accent, and they don't even know anything about real estate, and they're calling, and it's just like a task.
Yeah.
That's really good if you're going to be doing like data entry, but not for building relationships.
I agree. Because I was even talking to an agent the other day. It's like, hey, so-and-so wants me to, come interview at their brokerage, but they're too busy to call me, so they have some third-party person call me. And it's
That's so ridiculous.
If they're too busy to call me, then I don't want to talk to them. And I feel the same way.
Yeah.
I'm not going to let somebody else call my clients.
We get the recruiting calls all the time. I mean, like always, right? Where it's like, hey, if you want it, how'd you like to come work at, Super Mortgage, and I usually give them the appropriate time. They get a couple calls a week. I say, well, how long have you worked there? Well, we're okay. So, have you ever closed a loan there? You tell me lots of cool stuff.
Yeah.
Well, no, I'm actually hired to make these outbound calls. I can set you up with a manager. Yeah, as soon as the manager is able to actually call me because they see the value, then I'll talk to them. I mean, I'm probably never, ever, ever going to change, but that like very few, I would say less than 1% of all the recruiting calls I ever got have come from the actual person that they need to be coming from, which is interesting. So that would fall in line with calling your clients. I have heard success stories though of people calling where they've had an assistant, and that assistant has called and had success. Hey, Darrell and I were just checking in on you. I want to see how things are going. I have heard success stories. I haven't personally tried it. I would like to try it because I hate making those phone calls.
Yeah. Well, and the person who does the best job in town that I know of as far as following up with their clients on the phone is Brian Macker.
Okay.
I mean, he's got 2 hours at least time blocked a day to call his clients. And he's
Really?
got like 4,000 of them, and he calls them 2 to 3 times a year, every single one of them.
I guess 2 hours of call, like you said, 2 to 3 hours of prospecting, right? What can you actually accomplish in 2 to 3 hours of prospecting? And prospecting doesn't count to think about it. Yeah. It's like, well, I'm getting ready to call. I mean, just kind of thinking what I'm going to say. Just go, dude. Get an auto dialer if you need to.
Yeah.
Right. Just get on and get cranking. One or two more quick questions. I know we went over just a little bit here, but one or two more quick questions. If you were to go to a new city, Darrell knows nobody. Your wife just says, "Hey, Darrell, I'm done here. We're moving to Wichita," right? And you're like, "No, I've seen Wizard of Oz. I do not want to go there."
Yeah.
And you say, "Okay, look, I know it's for the best for whatever reason. You move there. What are the absolute necessity things that you do? How do you win in that town as quickly as possible in real estate?"
Well, I think do the new builds. Ask permission for the new builds if you can advertise for them.
Okay.
Do open houses for anybody you can do open houses. And then really join a lot of social things.
Okay.
Go sign up at the Y to the gym and go to the gym every day and meet people and volunteer here and do different things like that. Just meet as many people as you can as quickly as you can and try to get them into your database, so you can just soft touch them. And then
do you use a CRM right now?
Yes, I do.
Do you mind telling us what you use?
RealVolve.
RealVolve. Okay, I haven't heard of RealVolve. Why did you choose that one?
It's got a lot of really good capabilities as far as notes and things like that. It really takes good track of notes.
Can your whole team work on that together?
Yeah. So we upload everybody's database into them, into the CRM.
Yeah.
And all theirs are tagged for them.
Okay.
In there so they can do their own follow-up and things like that in there.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah. Okay, last question. Ready?
Yep.
What does Darrell do after working not 60 hours, but a good solid 40 hours? What does he do to unwind? What do you do during the year? Do you take vacations? Do you go rock climbing? Do you shoot guns? What do you do to unwind? Like it's very important in this business. I'm a huge problem to myself is that I don't give myself time to unwind. So I always like to find out from other successful people, what do you do to unwind and how frequently do you do this?
Well, I goof off a lot.
Okay.
As my followers on social media will know. The key for you is, schedule it.
Yeah.
Put your downtime on your calendar.
Okay.
and it's like, hey, I'm not available. I don't answer my phone after 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. It's like,
It's amazing how nothing's going to explode after 6 o'clock. But
we don't deliver babies.
Yeah.
We're not trauma surgeons.
There's no heart surgery going on.
Yeah. If somebody's basement's flooding, that's a different gig.
Yeah.
But really scheduling it out. So for me, skiing and golf.
Skiing and golf. Okay.
And travel.
Okay. Where do you like to ski?
Have my 20th annual boys ski weekend trip coming up to Crested Butte in February.
We used to call it steep, deep, and cheap.
Yep. So we're doing that. Usually Crested Butte, Wolf Creek, or Breck.
Okay. Wow. So you go outside of Breck, you kind of go off the beaten path a little bit.
I follow the snow. I storm chase.
You storm chase. Yeah. All right. You're not on the groomed Loveland runs, right?
No.
Yeah.
No. Then I like to travel. Usually that's one thing I've always done every quarter is make sure I go somewhere every quarter.
Oh, so every quarter.
Every quarter. And even if it's just a long weekend.
Okay.
A, I've got something to look forward to, and
Yeah.
B, I've got a reset for my mind.
That's awesome. Can you give me some more insight on that? Because as anybody listening to this, they're either new and they're working their tails off, or they're an existing agent working their tails off, and they're like, okay, how do I work my 40, 50 hours and recharge? So can you give me a quick insight, like how often is it a weekend away? How often is it a big trip? And how far in advance do you plan that?
I plan my next big trip as soon as I finished the one I was just on. So
Hawaii was fun. I can't wait for Greece.
I just booked Cabo after we came back from Turks and Caicos. But really, it's just setting aside the time, putting it on your calendar in advance so you don't overbook it. If you're married, have date night every week. Just make that stuff happen.
Okay.
And just put it on there. But yeah, I'm huge on balance. I always have been, because you can get so burned out and your skills go downhill. Your effectiveness is going to go downhill.
Yeah.
And we've all heard in this business, right? If business sucks, go on vacation.
Yeah.
Because that's when everything comes out of the woodwork and you get slammed.
Yeah.
And
I was watching an Elon Musk interview. I think it was BBC. No, it wasn't BBC. Who was it? There was some news outlet was interviewing him a couple months ago, and they're asking about his work schedule. He's like, yeah, I work a lot. And how often do you sleep? He's like, I sleep 6 hours a night. That's just what my body, does. And they said, well, geez, if you're only sleeping 6 hours, why stop there? Why not only sleep 5 or 4? He said, well, I tried that a couple of years ago. He's like, my effectiveness and it went down exponentially. He's like, I have to have that amount, and if I get a good solid of that amount, then I'm efficient and I'm effective. So the same thing going on vacation. You went to Turks and Caicos. Okay, I have a treadmill in my basement. It's what do they call it? It's not. Is it like an iFit maybe? Or, no, I can't remember what it is. But anyway, it like has a video screen on it, and it has these whole walking and running and hiking series. They have a whole Turks and Caicos series on there.
There you go.
So I feel like I've been there. Actually, I've walked many of the streets and beaches around there. In fact, I didn't even know where it was till about a year ago, and I was like, Turks and Caicos, that's these people's names. What is this? And I realized, it's a set of islands down there.
Yeah.
It's off by Cuba kind of ish.
It's Cuba and Puerto Rico-ish, south of the Bahamas. But it's closer to Cuba.
When were you there?
A couple weeks ago.
Oh, you just got back, and you already have your next one planned.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so when is that next one? Like how far is it? 6 months? Is it a year? Like how far do you usually push a big? It's next quarter.
August.
Okay, so next quarter.
Yeah.
Okay, so then you say sometimes you go away for a weekend, and other times it's a big one.
Yeah.
Right?
So coming up the end of this month, I'm just 3 nights in Telluride.
Okay. Yeah.
Just
skiing or just hanging out.
Just hanging out.
Yeah.
Just checking out the wildflowers, and so we'll be there 2 weeks from now.
Sweet.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man. It's great that you have balance. It's great that you have found a way to make this a career and not just a rough and tumble job where you're burned out and you got to drink away your worries at the end of each day. Instead, you're like, hey, because we've seen it happen, right? We see it far too often.
Lots of agents that are trying to drink their problems away.
Far too often. Well, I will quote Homer Simpson, alcohol, the cause and solution to all of my problems.
Yes.
Right? So we want to, I'd rather go to Turks and Caicos. I'd rather go to Cabo or wherever and have that as the goal. Well, thank you for being here, Darrell. I really appreciate it. And welcome back anytime for sure. That was another episode of Cut to the Chase with Tim Chase. That was my guest, Darrell Wass with RE/MAX. Tune in next week for another episode. That wraps up another episode of Agent Success Podcast. Remember, you can find new episodes each week at agentsuccesspodcast.com. We hope you found the insights and best practices shared today truly valuable. And if you did, please subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. Remember, your success is a journey of learning and improvement. So let's keep hustling, thriving, and learning. Until next week, this is Tim Chase.